Welcome to Let's Talk About, brought to you by the Business and IP Centre North East and the British Library. In this series, we want to showcase the people behind the Business and IP Centre North East, which includes our expert in residence, library staff, our BIPC locals, as well as featuring local businesses who have benefited from using our services. Hello, I'm so excited to get started in our Let's Talk About podcast series, talking about the Business and IP Centre Newcastle BIPC, where it all started and where it all began with three very key people in that journey. So it would be so nice to hear from each of you a little bit about yourselves, what you do for the BIPC, and then we can just chat about where it all began. So if we can start with you, Luke.
Yeah, so I'm Luke Burton. So currently I'm the service manager for community hubs and libraries. So I'm responsible for the library service, but I kind of got my, I suppose, big break, if you can go that far, with the Business and IP Centre. So I was involved in the original set of it back in 2011 and I was one of the first managers of it and worked closely with John and Andy as well in those early days as well. So trying to rack my brains back sort of 11 years to those days of doing that, but not so much involved in it directly now, but definitely, it brings back some fond memories of being there quite a number of years ago now.
Excellent, thank you. I can't wait to hear some of those stories. I'm sure you've got lots. John?
John Musham. I'm part of the economic development team at the City Council. When Luke went on to greater and better things about 8 years ago or so now, I took over as the Business and IP Centre manager. I've been with the council for a long time, over 30 years in various roles, but always working with small, medium-sized enterprises, pre-start clients, etc., and working with business support organisations. So it was quite a nice fit and a nice sort of move across to BIPC.
Perfect. And Andy?
Hi, I'm Andy Ditchburn. So I'm the founder and creative director at Perro. And I've been an expert in residence at the BIPC, I believe, since 2011, pretty much from the start. My role there is, or my title is Website, Brand and Marketing Expert in Residence. So I do one-to-one sessions every month, advice sessions, and then also workshops, masterclasses, events.
It's really nice to hear a little bit about how long all of you have been involved in the project so far and this initiative. And I'm a new expert in residence with the BIPC, and I have to say it's so wonderful to see the support available to the local business community. But I'm curious, just first off, what has the impact been of this service over the last 10 years? I mean, how many people have you helped in the region?
We reckon it's certainly around about 14,000 pre-start clients and SMEs have accessed the various elements of our service over the years.
If you actually map out, that many people and, the amount of funding they might each have or even the support to attend a marketing workshop or something like that, the economic, investment in the region is great, but that will also have, massive impact, overall as well. So what an amazing thing to watch grow, but also lots of stories behind the scenes. So, yeah.
I think it has those knock-on effects as well, doesn't it? It's not just, the numbers are important and the reach has been important and the British Library are keen to demonstrate that regional reach, but I think for us it's also exposing different people to the library services in general, but also demonstrating what a library can do. I think the Business and IP Centre is an extension of business libraries and, libraries have been doing that since the 19th century, but it was that unique combination of the intellectual property support, which I don't think you could really get anywhere else, certainly not for free. And then coupling that with those experts in residence and then putting them in a sort of safe, accessible space. I think, no disrespect to business support, but some people it's intimidating to go through the door. And I think I'd like to think that we got people through the door who might not have access to those services.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things is providing a front door where people can come in and access not only our services, but the services of our partner organisations, some of whom deliver on site within libraries. When I first got involved with BIPC, to be honest, I hadn't been in a library for donkey's years. And I was absolutely amazed at the breadth of stuff that was going on there, the activities that were going on there, the broad range of people that came into the library, people from all parts of the community at all ages, and it just sort of reinforced the fact that if you're looking to provide a business support offer and you're looking to make it accessible to all groups, the library is just an ideal place to do it, because people come in there, they're comfortable there, and they're comfortable about making that inquiry and coming to us and making that sort of first point of contact, whereas they might be more reticent about going into an office that an enterprise agency might have in town or something like that.
It's a really valid point, actually, because it's in our discussions for the series, there's a lot of discussion around having a space to go and to share ideas and to ask questions, and the value of a library to the local community, because for many people that is, such a community space to go into. And, although in 2022 we are in some ways more connected than ever, in other ways there are still people who don't have access regularly to computers or to research technology that they can use. So to have a space where they can come in and ask those questions is really really helpful. I'd like to know a little bit, Luke, about when everything was starting and the project first began. What was it like for sometimes you watch project ideas being written in the public sector, but they take a long time to socialize or to take hold or to drum up the interest in. So was it very much a quick project that launched and then you grew and over time kept growing, or because I know there's also, we were the first in the region. Was it the first in the UK, the Business and IP
First
Centre?
outside of London.
First outside of London. So, I mean, what was so special about Newcastle at that time that they chose to do it in the North East?
I mean, I suppose what was different, apart from me having a lot less grey hair back then, it does seem like such a long time ago. Anyway, I think it's fair to say that fairly instrumental was my predecessor, so Angela Forster, she was in a slightly different role at the time. But I remember her coming to me. I'd been with the service for a couple of years, maybe 18 months. And I remember coming to me one day and just saying, we're going to be working on a business offer and I'm going to ask you to work on it for the next 18 months. It was kind of, you're doing this. I didn't have any particular background in business information. I'd worked in heritage information. I'm a librarian by training, an archaeologist in a previous life. So it was all new to me. But I think Angela really had a conversation with British Library, and it was a model that she really liked. And I think she basically said, we're going to do it. And British Library, who have been, are fantastic partners across the board in so many things that we do, not just in the business world, but in sort of cultural, the offer that we have. But they were so supportive, but they were maybe a bit more like, okay, we'll have a look at this and explore that. And Angela was like, we're going to do it. And she was really she was open and collaborative, but she was very much, but we're going to do this. And I think it was her that drove that sort of very much that first offer. So she kind of went with that mantra, I suppose, of asking for forgiveness rather than permission, really. She said, we need this here. I think she saw it as, and I suppose speaking on her behalf, but, she came across as saying it was an extension of what we already did. It felt like a natural offer. We had a business library. We were a patent advice library. We had some of those expertise, and it was really about, she was passionate about how libraries could do exactly as John's been saying about supporting the community. So I think it was fast from that point of view. And then I think it kind of built momentum once colleagues at British Library kind of realised the potential that was there, that there was a ready-made testing ground for that expansion of that offer. And I think it's allowed them to, or it was the beginnings to allow them to feed into this wider network around funding through Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. So getting DCMS funding as they've got now, looking to build those networks and connections nationally and sort of leveraging that wider expertise across the board and showing that impact. So it did happen really quickly, and it happened, I wouldn't say overnight, but it started going, and it was really, how are we going to do this? And it was quickly identifying a space and identifying other people in the region who could help. Economic development were instrumental in that as well.
The head of economic development at the time was equally enthusiastic as well. Conscious that there wasn't that physical front door for people to come through. Business Link previously had provided some, that sort of access, and once they were disbanded, although there's a lot of really good stuff happening in Newcastle, a lot of really great business support organisations, there was no single point of access, and we felt there was a unique offer there that the library could deliver on, as well as bringing these people together and making it much more accessible to the public.
Absolutely. And how did you start getting involved, Andy? When were you roped in?
So, yeah, a colleague of mine at the time, she volunteered me. And in similar way to how I was volunteered for this podcast, actually. So she came back to the office. I think she'd been to a networking event and met somebody and said, I've put your name forward to be an expert in residence at the BIPC. And it just sort of, I've been trying to get away ever since, but not managed to.
But I mean, you know, you've worked with so many businesses over the years and really made a massive difference. So I know, for instance, with Luke and John, that's been part of your role, and you've been doing that for the council and for the library in your employed role. But for Andy, as his own business and being able to support other businesses, but through the partnership with the BIPC, you know, do you have any favourite stories, Andy, of businesses you've supported over the years? Or if you look back and think, gosh, the BIPC's come a long way, or as any organisation would grow?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many memorable stories, so many different people that I've seen over the years, and I think that, you know, the BIPC has come immensely and massively long way. It's a totally different animal altogether now than when it first started in a good way. I think the most memorable one-to-one appointment that I've ever done, it lasted about a minute. So somebody came into the room, sat down, asked a question. I gave an answer, and I was sort of ready for the next question, thinking there'll be half a dozen questions here, and that was it. The guy stood up and thanked me, said I'd been a great help, and shook my hand and left. I was trying to get a feedback form over to him, but I kind of thought, well, it's going to take him longer to fill in the feedback form than what the actual session lasted. But yeah, there's been a lot of, you know, I see people now, or I see a face, and I think, where do I know you from? And it's from the BIPC, however many years ago, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as you say, Newcastle was the first BIPC out of London 10.5 years ago. I think that quickly increased to 6, I think, didn't it? And there was 6 when I joined. But I think at the time we only had 6 or 7 experts in residence, and that included the IP attorneys and solicitors that support our intellectual property service. But now, you know, the network's grown, I think. It's hard to keep track of the numbers. It's grown so quickly now. I think there's 18, 19 BIPCs nationally within the network. Each of them will have their own experts in residence offer, but Newcastle, I think, is far and away. I think we're nearly up to 40 experts in residence now. So yes, it's grown and grown, and I think as the business support landscape's always changing, and the needs of businesses is always changing as well. You know, we've got obviously current issues with rampant inflation just round the corner, and with businesses are having to recover and respond to the damage that's been done during COVID, or in some cases build on the opportunities that it's provided. And, you know, as the demands from businesses has changed, we've had to look at, you know, we're constantly looking at what we deliver. And we've always been really keen, well, adamant that we don't want to tread on toes. We're not there to duplicate what any of the business support agencies do, but I think as Luke's touched on, what we do is uniquely different. You know, quite often organisations will say, "Oh, ours is quite unique." I think ours really is. There's no other offer around the region that provides the free intellectual property support, has the wealth of information that our databases, etc., have, and has just the fantastic offer that we've got from the experts in residence. And all of that kind of makes it much easier to work with other organisations, because, you know, we like to think we're not in competition with each other, but there's, you know, the funding brings a competitive element into it sometimes, but we genuinely can sort of add value to the offer that they can provide to their clients. So, you know, it makes it that sort of collaborative work and, you know, quite easy to develop.
Even having the register that you can kind of look through funding opportunities, I mean, that is so helpful to many businesses, because the time to look for funding opportunities or grants, or, that's one of the offerings that I didn't even know was part of the BIPC support and found out about recently. And there's just so much time you can save looking through the vast references.
That's the Grant Finder database.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of the most useful ones that we have in this.
And also the diversity in the experts you have. You've got people who are helping with risk and intellectual property, but also sustainability, carbon footprint, marketing, brand, website, podcasting. There's such a broad spectrum. Are you finding that the offering in Newcastle is a bit different to maybe some of the other BIPCs around the UK? Have you had a chance to look at any of the other offerings?
I think it's certainly a broader offer, as I've mentioned, and I think we're specifically looking to try and build capacity and add areas of expertise to our experts offer. As I say, as new sort of topics emerge and businesses need help with other things. So, for instance, the green sustainable economy. We're very keen to deliver more support around that area. We've recruited some experts who've got some real expertise and experience to offer, and there are others that would like to recruit. And one thing we haven't mentioned that the experts help with, they also help deliver a lot of the workshops and events that the BIPC deliver across the region as well. So again, as themes develop, the focus of our work changes slightly. So we'll be doing a lot more work, hopefully over the next year and onwards, around green sustainable business and the opportunity to grow your business, by adopting those sort of green sustainable practices within your business. But we'll also be focusing on other key things like, retailers and high streets, have suffered a lot. So we'll be doing a lot of work around that sort of area. A lot of what we do, again, it's not driven by the funding, but the funding's available to do certain things which, back up government and local policy and policy within the combined authority, etc. But whatever we do, we'll have to be absolutely sure in our own minds there's a need for it, and there's nobody else doing it.
I think that's the advantage we've had, though, isn't it? That being that bit older than some of the other business and IP centres, we've been able to develop that offer. So, as we've said, it's come such a long way from the time when Andy was first involved, that we have had those responses to demand and need. So whether it's sustainability, whether it's podcasting, whether it's other elements where actually we don't have the expertise. And I think we've always seen that as, and again, I'm biased as a librarian, but we come back to that, we haven't got the answer, but we'll find someone who has got the answer. And I think the unique element comes to it, as John's already said, is bringing it into that one place, into that one environment where you can access a menu of support from a number of different areas. And I still think that the library side still does give that unique element, because I remember doing intellectual property sessions out at the Business and Innovation Centre, and just an hour on patents, trademarks, registered designs. People were like, I didn't know that. Even things around copyright, where it was people took away simple things. So, and in part as well, we always talked about sometimes it wasn't the right thing for people. So people were saying, oh, well, I can't get a patent, so I'm not going to go down that route. So we save someone time and effort of doing something that isn't right for them necessarily, which is as valuable as this is something for me to progress. So it has definitely grown and taken on those new elements. And I think the bit that we are definitely unique from the other business and IP centres is the internal link between the libraries and economic development. That doesn't really exist anywhere else, and that was a result of circumstance and personalities and the will from both sides, from both sides.
I think it was, the timing was right, and I think it was realised that to support the growth of BIPC, it would be useful to have economic development more actively involved. My role at the time was, as I say, very much working with SMEs and startups, but sort of general liaison with business support partners and business support organisations, and being involved enabled us to sort of, BIPC, I think, to broaden the networks and contacts. And that in itself then enables you to develop new areas of work and take the centre forward, which is the way it worked out. We're quite unique within the network that we've got this collaboration and partnership between the libraries and economic development, and it works really well.
And it's so valuable for the region as well. And how often from a library perspective, are you able to do any research with participants, or what does the library get out of this partnership? I'm curious to think of some of the value that it brings for the library.
I think it definitely, some of it comes back to, we've talked a lot about whether it's the current economic situation or current situations that are being faced nationally. And we've talked a lot about libraries not necessarily being the answer, but part of the answer. And it's very much the case for the business support, is we saw that we had unique elements that we could provide. I think it was in part demonstrating, if you say to people, this is what libraries do, like John said, some people haven't been there for however many years. I think some people maybe switch off a bit and they say, oh, libraries isn't for me. And I think this is very much about, this is what you need, and libraries can provide it, or at least libraries can be a venue to access experts and other elements. So for us, it's about demonstrating the value of libraries. It's about getting people through the door, so we get people into libraries who don't necessarily see what they can do, and exposes them to other services. Didn't know there was a reading group or a story time or a book festival. But it's also about, I think, for us, it's an advocacy tool, really, in part, internally, to say, well, British Library have been really good at using the right language. They talk about, gross value add and how much money it brings to the region. And I think as libraries, we have the advantage of being universal and free at the point of access to everyone. But that's a hindrance in selling yourself, because you're of value to everyone. What's your unique selling point? And I think we can create a unique selling point around the Business and IP Centre, which brings value to us in demonstrating, as I say, as an advocacy tool for how we should be invested in more, or how we should be getting support. And British Library have done a fantastic job at drawing down money centrally from DCMS to get that. And it's led us to that position now with the regional network as well. That regional network wouldn't have happened without the work that's done on the ground. Because again, I've learned in the roles I'm in now, it's easy for us just to say yes. It's not us to actually do the work. And the Business and IP Centre in particular, it's the team that do the work on the ground, and it's the experts. And it wouldn't be that offer. I think there would be a strong-ish offer if it was only the intellectual property element in the library, but it's multiplied so many times by the number of experts that come through the door, and the longevity as well. I think Andy's testament to someone who came in, and whether he wants to leave or not, he's with us now, but he's been there for that long period. That's testament, I think, to you, but also to the sort of the service itself.
I think that's a really interesting point about staying with the BIPC as a expert for so long. What value does it bring to you personally, Andy?
I think most of all, I actually really enjoy it. I am passionate about business support. I'm passionate about giving businesses the skills, the experience, the knowledge that they need to succeed. And it does, you're not on the journey with someone, but when you see someone achieve success and you know that you've contributed even just like a really, really small amount, that's really satisfying. But yeah, I think business support it's really important that pre-start or startup people access really good quality business support. It will, if we can help businesses to grow, then that's a good thing for the wider society. So I am passionate about helping people to do that. And
I think it may sound a bit corny, but Business and IP Centre is a team, but I think it's a broader community than that. I think genuinely all of our experts and residents are really good at what they do, but they're all lovely people as well. In the business support organisations that we work with, and our team as well, I think everybody sort of gels together well, and it creates a community where people genuinely want to help businesses. That's the prime thing that we're looking at when we recruit our experts and residents. They're not there to promote their businesses, they're to bring their expertise to the table, and above all, they need to have that genuine interest in giving up their time, helping business, and getting some satisfaction to see the businesses that they work with grow and thrive.
I think it's always really good because as we do a lot of signposting in the sessions, so we'll say to somebody who comes in, we'll offer them some advice and then say, oh, go and have a session with this person. But as the guys have already said, the BIPC generally has so much to offer. So when people are coming in and doing the one-to-ones, when they're going to the events, when they're using the databases, they're tapping into all of the different services, I think it's really enjoyable to see that happen. It is a community of folk.
Absolutely. It's so nice to hear some of the stories and how people are interacting with the service. And I mean, I was fortunate to attend your recent 10-year anniversary event, which was really quite special because the energy in the room was wonderful, but also just seeing and hearing some of the stories of the people who were there that evening and who had been involved and, part of that journey. And having somebody like Steph McGovern, a radio and TV presenter there as well. I think what I really like about the BIPC is that actually it's not just Newcastle now, it's Sunderland, and there's, a space in Hexham and Berwick and Blaydon. So it's actually a broader reach locally, which means that there is even more connectedness, because it means that if you wanted to signpost someone locally, you can, but also you might say, well, actually that would be the BIPC Teesside or Devon, or you would be able to redirect someone. So it makes that whole connection and that network across the UK even stronger, and it means as well that you're helping your service users so much better, and our guests that we work with, our clients, we're able to provide a better service as well.
Yeah, I mean, but as you say, although we've delivered regionally, I think having the new BIPC locals opening up across the region gives you the physical presence, but again, it's providing the local front door for the clients, and it's enabling us to work with the local library staff to get involved with the local business support organisations, membership organisations, support providers, economic development teams, and get a bit more under the skin of the locality to determine what's needed in that area, because the support and the sort of things we might want to deliver in Newcastle might be very different to what we do in Berwick or what we might do in Sunderland, for instance. But it's enabling us to get a much better feel for what's required locally, and to go, if we haven't got that service, we haven't got a particular expert in a particular area that we need, we'll go out and find one and try to plug the gaps wherever we go.
And it's nice to see those services growing as well. There's certainly an element of nervousness, I think, when something new comes along like that. And especially with that funding, with tight deadlines and timescales and things got up and running. But you had people who were very cooperative and very helpful, but you could see there was a bit of tentativeness. But I think as soon as they started to say, we have regular catch-ups, and they're saying we've had so many people through the door, you can see the excitement starting to build where they're seeing tangible differences, and I think that always helps. There's to put something tangible on it. And again, I always come from the libraries background, but we are aware and we feel that we can contribute in a lot of ways. But to physically see someone come in and like you say, maybe not go on that journey with them, but to be part of that and see that growth for the people involved, but also from a library side, from the staffing side, I think they get something out of it. It's something new and different. It's a challenge, and it introduces them to a new way of working. It's got to make the day more exciting, surely, to be doing something new and different.
I'm very curious to know if you could go back, do anything differently. Is there anything you would have done?
Would you go back and change? I don't think there's very much from that point of view. I think some of the stuff happened by luck than by design, maybe necessarily. Certainly that connection between us and economic development colleagues happened because of sort of the two people who were leading the services at the time, and there was a recognition internally. So I think it was the right thing at the right time. So I think we were not reliant, but it was certainly helped by that sort of that environment at that point, and then finding the right people as well. And again, coming back to Andy because he's in the room, but those people who were there at that time and stepped forward and said yes, it wouldn't have worked without them, and that expert pool is flexed and changed as is required, but there's still those core elements that people wanted to access.
Yeah. If there's anything that I would change, it would be sort of bringing our online services together earlier. We talked prior to COVID, the IP surgeries that we do every week were in person, the experts in residence, so people by appointment at a fixed day every month in the library. And it worked, but we were aware that taking some of the stuff online might help us to do things a little bit more flexible, with a bit more flexibility, which was better for us and better for the clients as well. But never really did it. But obviously COVID came along and we were forced into that situation. And I have to say, I think it's worked really well for everybody. think experts and residents are able to see more people. You're not tied to that sort of, I'm in the last Thursday of every month and seeing people by appointment and perhaps sitting twiddling your thumbs if nobody turns up. And we can do more sessions. It's more flexible for the clients. The IP surgeries, we do those online now as well. And again, they're working very well. There are certain scenarios where we might need to see people face to face, where we need to see certain things, but and where a client requests it, we will try to do a face to face appointment. The experts I think have accommodated those as well, but the online stuff's working really well. And so, as I say, if we could change anything, we should have done that. We should have done it before. Yeah.
Is there anything you would change, Andy?
I don't think so, no, other than, just to second what John said, that the moving on to online has worked really, really well. A lot more flexibility.
So then my final question for you all before we close then is, what are you excited about with the BIPC? So it's been going for over 10 years now, but what about the future? What does it look like on the horizon?
I get excited when we're moving into a new area of work, so the green, sustainable, the sort of green growth agenda, I think is both an opportunity and a challenge, to get businesses engaged with that conversation, to help them understand that, yes, you can do all sorts of things that help the environment, but from a business point of view, there's real good, sound business reasons why you should engage with us and take it on board. So I'm really looking forward to making some advances and strides and delivering a lot more in that area as well. And I think working with local retailers as well. And by retail we're talking about food, hospitality, the whole sort of gambit. We've done bits of work with them in the past, and it's a sector that I've always enjoyed working with, and they always turn out well for events, and again, a nice group of businesses to work with.
I think there's something as well about that network, seeing that network grow, and I think we've demonstrated the value of it, but how what's next for that. I think for me we've said since probably day one that it's a library project, and I think we've been keen to get that message across. It's a partnership, and I think for me the important thing is that it stays key to what we do. There's never been a point in the conversation we've thought, should we keep doing this, or what's what we're going to stop it. It's always what's next, what's the new bit.
Even when we haven't had any additional funding other than the funding for staff, we've always delivered a service, and we've always, as we have at the moment, we've got the core offer, but the experts and residents are there because they're prepared to give up their time and genuinely want to work with the businesses. So that sort of pro bono element that they bring to the project enables us to continually have a very valuable offer for businesses and startups. And then when we get additional funding, obviously we build on that.
Absolutely. Well, for anyone listening or watching, we can certainly put links in the show notes to any calls to action, and it's good to know that there's some exciting things on the horizon there. Andy, anything coming up for you in relation to your role with the BIPC? I know you've done a fabulous program of workshops actually where they've all built one on the other. How has that been for you? Have you been able to watch some regulars kind of attend and see their journey develop? Yeah,
absolutely. The workshops that I've delivered recently, I think, have gone really, really well. And as you say, it's really nice when people come on more than one. They join one and they stay and come to two or three. I get more of a bond, a rapport with people. You get to know people, and it works really, really well. There's a lot of things coming up around sustainability, which I'm really excited about. I think that's a really important thing for businesses to focus on moving forward. But I think for me, it doesn't really matter what's happening or what's coming up. I'm just excited about people coming in, using the facility, using all of the different services that are on offer, and benefiting from it. I think that's where I get the most excitement, is just seeing people use it.
It's that face-to-face stuff as well, isn't it? I say I regret not going online, but having said that, we did webinars during COVID, and we couldn't wait to get back to the face-to-face stuff again. And that is where you create those relationships, and going back to communities as well. Like you see the same people coming to your workshops quite regularly, and that creates a community within those attendees, doesn't it? And there's spin-offs there that benefit everybody as well.
I think before COVID, we did an event in Gateshead and that was the last event that we did before COVID. And then we did the first event that I did was in the Buick Hall, and it was I can't tell you how good it was just to be in a room with people. After Zoom fatigue for 2 years, it was great to actually see faces.
Yeah.
And be treated to catering as well.
Yeah.
I know that's not something we might always have at workshops and things, but it is nice when when you're watching something online at home, you've got to provide your own biscuits.
Yeah. I've missed a free biscuit.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's been really wonderful to chat to you. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Head to the BIPC North East website to find out more about our information services and catch up on our latest news and events. This podcast series has been brought to you by the Business and IP Centre North East and the British Library, produced by Flamingo Heights Studio, and I've been your host, Ashleigh King. To help the show grow, subscribe and leave a rating wherever you're listening.